Let us begin quietly and let us begin true. Spiritual law is not your possession. It is not a trick, not a technique, not a weapon. No, never. Do not take into your hand what cannot be held, for the thing you would grasp is the very atmosphere of God, and the instant you attempt to wield it for a private purpose, it turns in your hand. It is a double-edged sword. Be not deceived. God is not mocked. Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. The sower and the reaper are one law, one rhythm, and in that law there is neither cruelty nor favoritism, only exactness. Hear this and let it rest upon you without fear. A principle is impersonal. When you say 2 times 2 is 4, nothing in the universe smiles or frowns. It simply is. If you misapply it, your bridge collapses, your ledger fails, and your harvest is emptiness. But the principle has not punished you. No, your error met accuracy, and only accuracy remained. So it is with the law of spirit. It does not conspire for you or against you. It does not bend because you are desperate or rise because you are clever. It simply reveals. It reveals where you have attempted to use God, and it reveals what remains when that attempt dissolves. You ask, why does selfish use of spiritual power backfire? Not supernaturally, lawfully. As surely as a flawed equation returns a flawed result, as surely as an engineer's pride in faulty measurements folds a building upon itself, so the thought of using God to get for me what I desire collapses under the weight of, thou shalt have no other gods before me, and love thy neighbor as thyself. Selfish intent is an attempt to install a private, God, my will, my outcome in the place reserved for the one. And in that very breath, the edge returns. Put up again thy sword into his place, for all they that take the sword shall perish with the sword. Not a curse, law. I say to you as one who has watched the tides of consciousness work in quiet inevitability. Do not tamper. Do not make of prayer a lever. Do not make of meditation a handle. Do not set your mind to push another mind. I hope you will never try to do it. I never give human advice, for I am not the actor. God is the actor. I am merely the instrument. Our safety is not in using law, but in yielding to it, in allowing the eternal to be itself through us, without interference, without outline, without demand. Let us set boundaries at the very gate. This is not a lesson in influence or control. It is not a method for getting your way or improving another person to your pattern. It is instruction in alignment, in reverence, in non-interference. It is the remembrance that I and my Father are one, and in that oneness there is nothing to take and no one to take it from. There is only the unveiling of what already is, like light filling the room when the shade is raised. Take this first word as a guard upon your lips and upon your heart. Do not use God. Seek God. Do not touch the law as a thing to be wielded. Consent to the law as the life that wields you. If ever you feel the heat of ambition, the press of urgency, the glitter of advantage, stop. No, be still. Let the sword return to its sheath. Let love resume its office. For in that stillness you will find the only safe ground. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things, and with that the blade becomes a shield, the law a dwelling place, and your hand, empty, is filled by God. Let us look now very quietly at what a principle is. You cannot bargain with 2 times 2. You cannot flatter it, bribe it, postpone it, or plead with it. 2 times 2 is 4. Always 4. If you insist that under pressure, under anxiety, under your special exception, it should become 5, your columns will not reconcile. Your account will not balance. Your bridge will not stand. The principle has not scolded you. It has not lifted a hand against you, it has revealed you. It has revealed your deviation. And in the light of its constancy, the deviation dissolves, sometimes as a harmless correction, sometimes as a very loud correction, a collapse, not a curse. Law. Consider the engineer. If he ignores load, stress, foundation, if he draws a proud line through steel without respecting the invisible arithmetic of forces, his building obeys gravity, not his confidence. It tilts, it cracks, it falls. Gravity is not insulted, the calculus is not offended, principle remains serenely itself, and in that serenity, the structure that refused to conform returns to dust. The stone which the builders rejected, the same has become the head of the corner. When the cornerstone is dismissed, the wall tells the truth. It cannot do otherwise. So in spiritual living, the universe is structured. It breathes with an order, not subject to private revision. Harmony comes by obedience, not by manipulation, by consent, not by conquest. He maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, which is to say, the action of God is universal and unprovoked by merit or by demerit. The sun does not choose, the sun reveals. The rain does not take sides, the rain discloses receptivity and unreceptivity. The open field drinks, the sealed cistern remains dry. When we attempt to coax God into partiality, we do not bend God, we bend ourselves into loneliness, and that loneliness will testify until we come home to order. What then are the non-negotiables? They are not many, but they are absolute. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. One God, no private altar to fear, no carved image of gain, no hidden shrine to personal will. These are idols, fashioned in the workshop of an eye that believes itself to be a little creature, locked in a little body with a little future to defend. Tear them down, not with violence, but with light. Acknowledge God as God, and let every lesser claim be seen for what it is, phantom. The second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself, not as a strategy, not as a transaction, but as recognition. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. There is no neighbor out there to use. There is only God appearing as neighbor to be honored. Do you see now why there can be no selfish purpose in a cosmic law? To introduce a selfish aim is to insert a second God, a rival center, in a universe whose wholeness is its very essence. The moment that split appears in thought, the cloth tears not in God, but in our experience of God, and the edges fray until love mends them. Be not deceived. God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. Wrath? No. Revelation. The seed meets the soil, and at once the nature of the seed appears. So to fear, and fear blossoms. So to spirit, and life everlasting unfolds. Cause and effect are not policemen at the corners of your day. They are the simple announcement that principle is present, that reality will be reality, whether or not we salute it. I speak in this way to remove both terror and presumption. Terror imagines a deity poised to strike. Presumption imagines a technique with which to strike first. Neither lives in truth. Principle does not punish. It reveals error, carries its own consequence the instant it meets law, and truth carries its own freedom the instant it is yielded to. Therefore, do not attempt to move God, be moved by God. Do not argue with 2 times 2. Let 2 times 2 instruct you. Do not outline the building to defy gravity. Draw your line so that gravity is your ally. In the same manner, arrange your inner life around the first and the second commandments, and the moral universe will not threaten you, it will support you. Great peace have they which love thy law, and nothing shall offend them. Why? because love of the law is agreement with what is, and agreement with what is becomes the floor under your feet, the air in your lungs, the still, sure government of your day. Let this sink deeply. There is nothing to fear in an impersonal principle. There is only something to respect. There is only someone to love. And as that respect becomes obedience and that love becomes likeness, you will find that order is not a fence, it is a pasture. You will not strive to get, you will consent to be. And in that consent, without outline, without demand, grace takes its place and speaks for itself. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. There is an absolute here, and it will not bend for me or for you. There can be no selfish purpose in a cosmic law, no private channel inside an infinite principle, no side door, no secret clause, no personal exemption. No. A law that is one cannot be parceled into mine and yours, cannot be drafted to elevate a center that imagines itself apart from the whole. To introduce a private aim into the infinite is to propose two in the place of one, and in the very proposing, the edge appears. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Where there is one, there is no second will to serve, no second interest to advance, no second safety to secure. What is the hidden motive in so-called spiritual power misused? Let us name it and be done with its disguise. It is to get, it is to control, it is to be superior, it is to secure oneself at another's expense. Sometimes it is dressed in religious robes, pious words around a demand. Sometimes it parades as positive thinking, mental force laid upon circumstance. Sometimes it is simply fear trying to build a wall with prayers. Do not be deceived by the wardrobe. Whenever the intent is for me against another, for my outcome, regardless of the whole, it has already cut itself off from the very oneness in which law operates. Charity seeketh not her own. Love does not take hostages. Love is not a technique for leverage. Love is God's nature revealing itself as harmony to itself. Now the mechanism, for there is nothing occult in this, selfish intent sets consciousness in separation. It announces, I am here, you are there. I am needy, you are supply. I am vulnerable, you are threat. And in that announcement, it draws a circle around itself and calls it life. That circle is the very pain it seeks to escape. For the law of spirit functions by identity, by the realization that I and my Father are one, and that my conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. The moment I posit a private good, a private safety, a private victory, I posit a private self, and a private self is a lonely self. Loneliness is not a punishment. It is the exact result of drawing a boundary against infinity. This is the double-edged sword spoken of. The law cuts both ways because it is one. What you consent to as true becomes your own measure. With what measure ye meet, it shall be measured to you again. If I meet control, I live controlled by fear of losing control. If I meet superiority, I live inferior, chained to the need to prove. If I meet gain at another's cost, I live in loss, haunted by the suspicion that life is a contest and God a judge. Not rare. Reckoning. The measure returns because there is only one fabric, and I am never outside the weave. Whatsoever ye would that men should do to you, do ye even so to them. Not as etiquette, but as law, as the way consciousness recognizes itself and so reveals its harvest. Do not hear this as a demand to be good enough. No. This is an invitation to be oriented rightly, to turn from private will to the will that is one. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. First the one, then the things by law, not moral muscle, not human excellence. Consent, alignment, yielding. It is not that we must raise ourselves to holiness. It is that we must lower the arms of self-importance and let holiness be what it is, where it is everywhere. How shall we begin? Begin by releasing the project of lay down the idea that prayer is a lever, meditation a handle, affirmation a spell. Say within yourself, quietly, truthfully, thy will be done. Say it until the edges soften, until the tension of arranging and defending becomes unnecessary because you are remembering. I am not in the physical. I am absent from the body and present with the Lord. In my oneness with God, I find my completeness, my safety, my sufficiency. Then the law no longer turns in your hand. It lifts you in its order, and there is nothing to rebound because there is no private blade to return. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Now look with me very simply, very honestly. When you say I, where is it? Is it here, behind the eyes? Is it here, in the chest? Is it here, in the stomach, the liver, the knee? No, no. Put a finger on the forehead and say I, and still the I will not be found there. Put a hand over the heart and say I, and still the I is not confined beneath that hand. No surgeon has ever yet found any me inside of a body. The scalpel opens, the instruments discover organs, fluids, nerves, and yet never the I. When you drift into sleep, the body lies quietly, and yet the I does not depart. And when you awaken, it is not a little person returning to a little house. It is awareness resuming attention to an instrument. Where, then, is the I? When I say I, how are you going to localize that? You cannot, because the I is not in the physical. I am not in the physical. The body is experienced. The self is not localized inside it. You cannot leave a prison you were never in. You cannot be trapped by walls that cannot contain you. In Him we live and move and have our being. That is the address of identity, not the street of flesh. Absent from the body and present with the Lord is not a doctrine of escape. It is a description of consciousness. It is the turning of attention from thing to source, from instrument to musician. I and my Father are one. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. When this is realized, the body is honored as instrument, useful, cared for, but not feared, not worshipped, not made an idol. Now see how the first tampering begins. If I believe I am a body, then I am a timeline. I am a boundary. I am a scarcity needing to be filled from the outside. At once, prayer becomes a fence against imagined loss. Meditation becomes a helmet for imagined battle. Law becomes a tool for imagined advantage. I must defend this body. I must compete for its survival. I must control outcomes to secure its future. And in that very movement, me here, the world there, me needy, you supply, me fragile, you threat love, is replaced by leverage. Whosoever will save his life shall lose it. This is not cruelty. It is law. The life I strive to preserve as a private possession closes like a fist, and in the closing it cannot receive. Do you see the violation as it occurs? Thou shalt have no other gods before me. When I enthrone the body's safety as God, when I bow to fear as oracle, I have installed a second center, my will, my outline in a universe whose life is one. Then comes the second commandment, and with it the sorrow of separation. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. But if myself is a solitary flesh packet, then my neighbor is rival or resource, an obstacle to remove or a project to improve. I cannot truly love while I am measuring another against my body's advantage. Ye cannot serve God and mammon. God and gain for a private center are not partners. They are opposites. And so as I meet control, I am met by fear. As I meet superiority, I am met by inferiority. The law has not punished, it has revealed. Error meeting principle collapses. What is the safe alternative? Not to despise the body, not to abandon earth, but to relocate identity in truth, absent from the body, present with the Lord here, now, as a turn of awareness. Be still and know that I am God. Let the I rest where it belongs, non-local, indivisible, God-derived. Then you will find that communion replaces control. Where there is no private self to defend, there is no neighbor to use. There is only God appearing as you and as the one before you, and love fulfills itself without your push. In my oneness with God, I find my completeness. In my oneness with God, I find my safety. In my oneness with God, I find my sufficiency. And to seal it not as charm, but as consent. Let this truth govern your breath. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Let us draw a clear line and draw it with love. Never make another person your project. Do not use spiritual phrases to push a life, to pry into a soul, to fix what your eyes judge broken, or to invade with thought what God alone governs. No, no. Judge not that ye be not judged. To judge is to outline, and to outline is to interfere. Who art thou that judgest another man's servant? To his own master he standeth or falleth. Your neighbor is not your servant. Your neighbor is God's appearing. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. In that oneness there is nothing to manage. There is only something to behold. See the hidden violence of so-called helping. Much of what we call help is an attempt to rearrange another's experience so that our discomfort will cease. Be as I think you should be, and then I can have peace. That is not love. That is control wearing the garments of kindness. Love seeketh not her own, and yet the ego seeks its own relief, its own order, its own face, reflected back from every countenance it meets. When I treat you as the object of my project, I have already denied you as spiritual being. I have made you a problem for my mind to solve, a clay for my hands to mold, and I have stepped out of principle. The moment I move from beholding to handling, I have left the altar for the workshop, and in the workshop the tools turn to blades. Understand the violation, not in superstition, but in law. Mental coercion is not love. It is the announcement that I know better than God what this life should be. It treats the neighbor as a thing to be moved, not a presence to be honored. It converts prayer into a private blueprint and the soul before me into lumber. All they that take the sword shall perish with the sword. The sword here is will, my will, applied mentally, spiritually, cleverly. What returns is not a hex, it is the recoil of separation. With what measure ye meet, it shall be measured to you again. If I meet interference, I live interfered with by anxiety, by compulsion, by the endless need to keep my puppets in line. If I meet liberty, I live free because love leaves all with God and finds in that leaving the peace it was seeking. The safe posture is this: I do not direct, I consent. God is the actor, I am merely the instrument. I have studiously avoided mental and physical contacts for this reason. I never give human advice because I refuse the role that belongs to the Father within, not by might nor by power, but by my Spirit, saith the Lord. True prayer never interferes. It does not reach into another consciousness to patch, to push, to pry. It stands still. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. It beholds God where sense testifies to lack. It yields to the government already present. It says, not my will, but thine be done. And then it is silent enough to let that will be itself. Mark the difference and let it end confusion. Projection is personal will with a spiritual vocabulary. It outlines an outcome, baptizes it with sacred words, and presses it toward another life. Prayer is surrender to what God is. It relinquishes the outline, refuses the project, and enters the quiet where the click of oneness makes a mockery of all meddling. In that click there is no other to fix. There is only God, and God's perfection reveals itself in ways that require no management and admit of no boasting. Be still and know that I am God. Not be busy and make a god of your plan. How then do we meet a brother in need? Not by handling him, by hallowing him. Not by speaking many words at him, by standing wordlessly with God about him. Remove the hand of mind, remove the push of fear, remove the itch to advise. Let the prayer be a beholding. Father, I see thee here. I recognize thy life as the life of this one. I rest. If an action is required, it rises without argument and without trespass. If a word is given, it comes without opinion and without pressure. But until the Spirit moves, remain still. Interfere with no one, compel no one. For in the law of love, the neighbor is holy ground. This is not neglect, it is obedience. It is the first and the second commandments honored at once. Thou shalt have no other gods before me, and thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. To love as thyself is to refuse to use, to refuse to project, to refuse to turn a soul into a scheme. It is to let God be God where God alone is adequate. In my oneness with God, I find my seeing. In my oneness with God, I find my peace. And from that peace, unforced and unafraid, I can say and do only what love is doing. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Let us open the matter and remove the superstition from it. When you speak a word within, when you give consent in your heart, you have set the mold of your experience, not tomorrow, now. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. What I consent to in consciousness, I meet as life. If I agree to separation, me over here, an advantage over there, me on top and you beneath, me the mover and you the moved, I have breathed separation into the fabric of my day. Its first fruit is not an outer event. Its first fruit is the state of being that consent creates: tension, watchfulness, fear. Backfire is not punishment. It is consciousness meeting principal error, collapsing under the weight of truth. Do not picture a God flinging lightning because you tried to take a shortcut. No. Picture 2 times 2. If you begin with 5, every line you draw, every sum you carry forward, bears the strain of that error. Columns don't reconcile. Ledger refuses balance. Anxiety rises because the edifice you built won't stand still. It wobbles on a false premise. But 2 times 2 has not turned against you. Principle remains untroubled, immaculate. You have met it with a wrong number, and the wrong number cannot produce right peace. This is the backfire. It is the noise of miscalculation meeting the quiet of accuracy. So with spiritual things, be not deceived. God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. You sow not later, you sow now. The seed is your consent. If you sow to superiority, you reap inferiority in the same breath. For hierarchy requires a ladder, and ladders require eyes fixed down to be sure you are above someone. That is fear. If you sow to manipulation, you reap suspicion immediately. For a mind that manipulates must live under the rule it believes in. Nothing moves without pressure. That is conflict. If you sow to gain at another's cost, you reap loss at once, for you have announced a universe of scarcity in which anything given to another is taken from you. That is emptiness. The harvest begins as your atmosphere before it appears as your circumstance. Consider again the builder who ignores the stress diagram. He can force his will into steel for a time, rivet by rivet, beam by beam, but the wind and the weight will have their say. When the structure returns to dust, gravity has not cursed it. Gravity is held steady to what it is. In the very same way, the law of spirit holds steady. One God, love thy neighbor as thyself. Where I install a second God, my private will, my private outcome, the very act of installation, removes me from the peace that law already is. With what measure ye meet, it shall be measured to you again. The measure is immediate because the meter is within. Now here is the mercy, and let your heart take comfort in it. The very rebound you dread is the shepherd's crook. It curves you home. Consequence is correction. It is the finger of God writing in the dust of our miscalculation, not to condemn, but to reveal the straight line we refuse. Whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth, not with blows, but with the refusal of principle to pretend. When the discomfort rises, do not defend the error. Let it collapse. Do not brace the wobbling wall with new ambitions and pious phrases. Tear out the wrong number and let the true sum appear. Repentance is simply this: exchange of premise, turning from 2 times 2 is 5 to 2 times 2 is 4, from 2 gods to 1. What then shall we do when the sting of our own sowing touches us? We do not run for charms. We do not double our pressure. We grow still. Be still and know that I am God. Right there, where fear announces division, we refuse the second center. We say quietly, honestly, I and my Father are one. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. The moment oneness is consented to, the harvest shifts by law, because the seed has changed. Peace rises, not as reward, but as nature. Guidance appears, not to prop up a false blueprint, but to align us with the cornerstone we had rejected. Take this as a protection and as a promise. Law does not hunt you, love governs you. If you will not argue, if you will not outline, if you will surrender the counterfeit premise for the real, the very rebound that frightened you becomes the lift of grace. The blade returns to its sheath, and the hand that once grasped begins to open. And in that opening, without effort, without bargain, this prayer becomes your atmosphere and your sufficiency. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Now let us make the reversal plain so there can be no confusion left in us. You do not use spiritual law. You cannot. Law is not a tool in the hand of a person. The person is the appearance of law when the person is surrendered. You do not apply a sunrise to a garden. You open the soil and the sun does what the sun is. You do not command 2 times 2 to be 4 for your project. You conform your project to what 2 times 2 already is. In the same way, you do not take the name of God into a plan and give it power. You take the plan out of your hands and let the power be God. That is the pivot. That is safety. The moment we cease trying to bend principle and begin to bow before it, the double edge disappears, because there is nothing left to cut. I of mine own self can do nothing, and in that nothing all acts. What then is obedience? Not piety, not posture. Obedience is inner alignment with what is. 1, thou shalt have no other gods before me. No other powers, no health power, no money power, no people power, no mind power set up as rivals or assistants to God. One presence, one cause, one life. And the second is like unto it, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Love means no taking, no harming, no hidden agenda, no using a soul as lumber for my comfort. Charity seeketh not her own. Where there is a scheme, there is a second God. Where there is a second God, there is the wobble you call trouble. Alignment is to sit down within and say truthfully, I and my Father are one, and because that is so, My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. There is no outside to defend against, no neighbor to maneuver, one fabric, one life. Now hear the desireless principle and let it loosen the grip in your fingers. The more I try to get, the less I can receive. Why? Because grasping assumes an outside source, and that assumption is separation. A closed fist cannot take a gift. He that will save his life shall lose it, and he that will lose the clutch, the outline, the bargaining, for my sake shall find it. Receptivity replaces grasping. Desireless does not mean loveless or passive. It means free of private agenda. It is the openness of an untroubled field to reign. Delight thyself also in the Lord, and he shall give thee the desires of thine heart, not the cravings of fear, but the desires of heart itself. God's own harmony, finding its form where there is room to be what it is. When I want nothing you have, and you want nothing I have, there is no contest. Love flows because nothing is damned by demand. Instrumentality follows naturally from this. God is the actor. I am merely the instrument. I do not outline. I do not plan and press. I do not push prayers at circumstances. Not by might nor by power, but by my Spirit, saith the Lord. In practice, this means I take the hands off the levers of thought, I refuse the role of private architect, and I wait in a state of receptivity until finally the click comes, the quiet assurance of oneness that needs no reasons and seeks no proofs. Then and only then, whatever word or act appears is not mine, it is the Father within doing the works. I never give human advice, because I dare not place my outline where the Spirit must govern. I am not in the physical. I am absent from the body and present with the Lord, present enough to be used, absent enough to do no interfering. Do you feel how hope rises as we come into this? This is not a tightrope, it is bedrock. Whosoever heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them, I will liken him unto a wise man which built his house upon a rock. The wind may blow, the tide may rise, and still the house stands, not by clever bracing, but because its foundation is principle, not preference. Obedience is natural because it is agreement with the way things are. To conform to law is to enter the ease already present. Great peace have they which love thy law, and nothing shall offend them. Nothing can offend a structure that fits its cornerstone. Nothing can threaten a life that has refused a second center. So the safe use of spiritual law is no use at all. It is holy consent. It is this quiet, desireless turning, Father, be thyself here. I will not outline. I will not bargain. I will not take thought for the morrow. I will behold thy presence as the only cause, thy love as the only motive, thy grace as the only sufficiency. And then, without recoil, without rebound, without a blade turning in the hand, order acts, because order is, in my oneness with God, I find my completeness. In my oneness with God, I find my security. In my oneness with God, I find my guidance. I am merely the instrument. God is the actor. And as a seal upon this heart, let the password of safety move with your breath until it becomes your climate. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Now let us make a doorway you can find in the dark. There is no mystery in it, and certainly no magic. It will be a chair, ordinary, steady, low enough that the feet rest flat upon the floor. Sit without strain. Let the spine be upright but not stiff, the head easy on the neck, the jaw unclenched. Place the hands loosely in the lap. Never prop the elbows. Let the shoulders fall. Close the eyes only for ease, not for occult vision. There is no occult reason for any of this. There is only the physical comfort that removes intrusion. In this position, with the eyes closed, Become so quiet that you are virtually unaware of having a body. You are not in the physical. You cannot leave what you were never in. Absent from the body and present with the Lord, present as awareness, not as posture. Enter the closet of your own consciousness and shut the door. When thou prayest, enter into thy closet, and when thou hast shut thy door, pray to thy Father which is in secret. The door is shut when you are no longer sending out thoughts, no longer asking for things, no longer outlining for yourself or another. No fixing, no pushing, no bargaining, no repeating phrases to persuade the infinite. Be desireless. Be receptive. Let the breath find its own rhythm. Let the mind do as it pleases for a moment, and then gently, quietly place this wordless consent in the heart. Not my will, but thine be done. If thoughts rise like birds from a field, do not chase them and do not cage them. Let them lift and pass. Do not fight sensation. Let it be. Do not time the silence. Clocks do not measure God. Do not reach for a feeling. Reaching is distant. You are not manufacturing a mood. You are yielding to a presence. Be still and know that I am God. Not be clever and know. Be still and know. Sit without ambition until the edges of wanting soften, until the habit of sending begins to rest. This is prayer, not performance. It is the Sabbath of the will. It is your soul off duty. What then is the inner stance? It is beholding. It is the quiet, unaimed awareness that God is. Here, not that God should be, not that God will be if you do it right. God is. You are not seeking an effect. You are consenting to cause. You are not trying to heal a body or reform a brother. You are not gathering power to throw at a problem. God is the actor. You are merely the instrument. And in this silence, you refuse to play the tune for God. You hold the instrument ready and you wait. Not by might nor by power, but by my Spirit, saith the Lord. Now about the marker that ends all doubt. In time or out of time, the click comes. It is not a jolt. It is not a trance. It is the simplest of certainties, the quietest of yeses, a settling without argument. It may feel like a soft descent into a room you have always lived in. It may feel like the sudden absence of need. It may be nothing you can describe, only the knowledge that I and my Father are one. And because that is so, my conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. Do not imagine the click. Do not imitate it. Do not be impatient for it. Impatience is will in fancy dress. If it does not come today, it does not need to. Your part is consent. God's part is God. If in the midst you find yourself tightening, planning, pleading, measuring progress, stop. Smile inwardly at the old habit and return to the simple posture of consent. Sometimes a single line will reopen the door. Speak, Lord, for thy servant heareth. Sometimes the password of sufficiency will quiet the mind that would perform. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Whisper it once and then be silent. Leave all with God. The kingdom of God is within you. Within, not under your thumbs, not at the end of a technique, but where stillness uncovers presence. This is the safe doorway. It does not interfere with anyone. It does not place hands upon levers. It does not strain thought into shapes. It rests. It yields. It lets law be what law is. As you keep this appointment short, honest, desireless, the soil of consciousness opens, and without your management, without your outline, the rain falls. Guidance rises without push. Peace arrives without price. And when the silence releases you, it is not to do great things by effort, but to be what you are in God by grace. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. From the silence into the street, this is the movement. The click is not an ornament for your interior. It is the life of God becoming visible as your conduct. By their fruits ye shall know them. If the fruit remains the same, sharp, grabbing, superior, then call the blossom by its name, not union. No, no. Union is not a private ecstasy. It is the end of private life. It is the disappearance of a second center. It is love made effortless because there is no one left to be loving, only love being itself. Love is the fulfilling of the law. Where love fulfills, moral strain fades. You are not carrying commandments like stones. You are moving in the nature of God, and the nature keeps its own shape. Understand the mechanism, and you will not be fooled again. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. Therefore there is no other, to use no mind to bend, no pocket to pick, no prestige to borrow. Exploitation becomes impossible, not by rule, but by realization. The same life that says I here is the life saying I there, and when the hand would close upon a neighbor, it is closing upon God. Whatsoever ye do to the least of these, my brethren, ye have done it unto me. In union, that sentence ceases to be poetry, it becomes geometry. One fabric cannot tear itself without showing the rip everywhere. So the grasp relaxes, the tone softens, the eye beholds. Conduct changes because identity has changed. Contrast the two lives and choose your yoke. The manipulator must manage outcomes. He must keep 3 balls in the air and 5 stories straight. He must watch faces, count favors, feed appetites, and outpace the tremor that follows every theft of peace. He takes thought for the morrow because fear hires him by the hour. Anxiety is his taskmaster. Suspicion is his bedfellow. But the surrendered one, in all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Guidance is given, correction is gentle, supply is native. There is work, but it is yoke easy, burden light. There are decisions, but they arise from a center that is not divided. The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, not ordered at him, ordered as him, from within out. Here is your diagnostic, and let it protect you. If your so-called spiritual practice leaves you more critical, more elite, more insistent upon your way, it is not practice, it is performance. No, no. Pride goeth before destruction, and an haughty spirit before a fall. The wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, and easy to be entreated. If what you call insight hardens you, it is not insight. If what you call power interferes, it is not power. If what you call law gives you leverage over a brother, it is not law. Union produces humility, patience, readiness to yield, and a tenderness that would rather be silent than be right without love. And now, the sweet reversal. What tampering tries to get, grace gives without bargain. Security, perfect love casteth out fear. Recognition, thou art my beloved Son. In thee I am well pleased, not as flattery, but as nature recognized in consciousness. Supply, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. They are added, not seized. They flow, not because you deserve them, but because you have ceased blocking the river with a dam of a second God. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Say it softly, breathe it honestly, and watch how appetite quiets, how urgency kneels, how enough appears where you had sworn there was none. How, then, does conduct form itself from the click? It is very simple. Before the word leaves your mouth, pause in the place of oneness and ask not in thought, but in consent. Is this love or leverage? Before the hand moves to send the message, to close the deal, to correct the child, to answer the provocation, be still long enough to know whether you are using or beholding. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord. If there is an outline, withdraw it. If there is a project, lay it down. If there is a fear, let love look it in the face until it has no face left. Then act, and your action will carry no bruise. Speak, and your word will not return void because it was not yours. God is the actor. I am merely the instrument. This is ethics without effort because it is identity without rivalry. It appears in the small things, how you drive, how you pay, how you answer, how you wait. It appears where no one is watching and where everyone is watching the same. From click to conduct is one motion, God being God as you. And if ever you forget, return to the password that dissolves the temptation to use and restores the joy of being used. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Let me speak plainly and protectively, because much tampering hides under pious language. Most do not intend to violate the law. They drift. And the drift is almost always in three directions: prediction and control, spiritual superiority, and transactional love. Each is a second God erected quietly in consciousness. Each converts a neighbor to a means. Each brings its own unease the moment it is consented to. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Where these are honored, the blade sheathes itself. Where they are forgotten, the edge begins to whisper. First, prediction and control. A mother prays, let this school accept my child. A businessman prays, close this deal. A seeker prays, make this illness leave now. The words seem faithful, but the premise is idolatry. An outcome has been deified, and God is asked to serve it. Prayer is treated like a lever to force certainty, as if 2 times 2 could be persuaded to be 5 if the plea were pure enough. No, no. The one cannot be harnessed to a private outline. In that very instant of outlining, fear enters, the fear of losing the God we just made, the fear of being denied what we have declared essential. Love of neighbor is lost as well, for all persons involved are reduced to pieces on our board. Take no thought for the morrow. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. The corrective, relinquish the outcome. Sit down in silence until the grasp relaxes. Not my will, but thine be done. Bless all sides without preference. Father, be thyself here for each one. I will not outline, I will not bargain. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. Then rest. God is the actor, I am merely the instrument. In that rest, guidance appears without recoil, and results arrive as grace, not as trophies of will. Second, spiritual superiority. A student learns a phrase of truth and wields it like a scepter, correcting a spouse, silencing a friend, winning debates with principle. Another sits above, inwardly grading the congregation. This is a subtler idol, an image of one's understanding. Knowledge puffeth up, but charity edifieth. Pride goeth before destruction, and an haughty spirit before a fall. When I make a pedestal of my insight, I have 2 gods, the living God and the God of my concepts, and I serve the second. Love of neighbor fails too, for the neighbor becomes a mirror to admire myself in or a target to conquer. The corrective, lay the crown down. I of mine own self can do nothing. Wash the feet inwardly. Before speaking, ask, is this love or leverage? If it is leverage, withdraw the word. If it is love, it will be gentle, peaceable, easy to be entreated. I never give human advice. Let the Father within me do all the blessing. Return to instrumentality. In humility, the click comes. In humility, truth heals without a sign of the healer. Third, transactional love. A gift is given to secure loyalty. A favor is done to call in later. A good deed is offered so the universe will pay it back with health, wealth, recognition. Virtue becomes commerce. We set up a market where grace used to be. That is two gods again, God and reward, and the neighbor becomes currency. What reward have ye? Do not even the publicans the same? When thou doest alms, let not thy left hand know what thy right hand doeth. The moment love is priced, suspicion is sown, and emptiness follows, because trade cannot satisfy what only sharing can. The corrective? Give and forget, bless and release. Freely ye have received, freely give. Refuse to keep a ledger in the heart. Let the act pass into secrecy, known only to the Father in secret. Abide where sufficiency is native. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. In that atmosphere, generosity is natural because there is no fear of loss. Loyalty is unnecessary because love does not hire friends. Reward is irrelevant because presence is the wage. These are common corners, but they need not be your corners. See them without shame. They are not monsters. They are habits of a mind that believes in two. Now consent to one. Relinquish outcome. Relinquish status. Relinquish transaction. Enter the closet. Be still. Behold God. Then step out without a second God in your pocket and without a neighbor in your plans. Love God. Love thy neighbor. And let this be the safeguard at the door of your thought and the simplicity in your day. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Now we bring all this into the hallway and the inbox and the kitchen table. I never give human advice. Not to be difficult, not to be mysterious, but because guidance must rise from the infinite within you. And if I were to hand you a plan, I would put you under my outline and away from your God. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. God is the actor, I am merely the instrument. You are an instrument too. Let the music be God. Here is the inner protocol. When a decision touches you, do not rush. Pause. Shut the door of thought. Enter the closet. Let the breath settle. Drop the pictures of outcomes. Drop the list of pros and cons. Drop the wish to be right, to be safe, to be seen. No outlining, no bargaining. Place this simple consent in the heart. Father, be thyself here. I and my Father are one. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. Then wait in quiet receptivity until the click comes, or until a gentle, unforced impulse rises that carries no bruise in it. The wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, and easy to be entreated. If what rises is sharp, urgent, self-seeking, it is not yet guidance. Return to stillness. At work, the email arrives. Push this through by Friday. Cut the corner. No one will notice. The mind leaps. Protect the position. Secure the praise. Keep the pipeline. Pause. Enter the closet. Ask the safeguard question. Does this choice express love and oneness? Or does it seek advantage and separation? If it needs someone else to lose for me to win, it is not law, it is leverage. No. Withdraw the hand. Wait for the unhurried word that does no harm. You may find yourself writing a clear, respectful no with an honest alternative, or you may be led to a different solution that satisfies the true requirement without violating integrity. Doors that would have slammed will often open because you did not force them. And if they close as protection, not as punishment. A good man's steps are ordered by the Lord. In family conflict, The child or partner speaks a hard word. The old habit arms itself with a harder word. Pause. Be absent from the body and present with the Lord, present enough to hear what love would say, if anything. Ask again, is this love or leverage? If the impulse is to punish, to win, to remind of past debts, silence is your obedience. Be still until tenderness appears. Then speak few words, soft words, or no words. A soft answer turneth away wrath. Very often the heat dissolves when the will is not on the field. The relationship confirms what the silence knew. Unity is the remedy, not victory. In money fear, the bill dates glare, and the pulse races toward deals and debts and presses and pleas. Pause. Refuse the second God named lack. Take no thought for your life. Enter the closet and breathe the password of sufficiency. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Ask the safeguard. Will this act arise from fear and grasping or from honor and trust? Guidance will never send you to cheat your neighbor, to shade the truth, to mortgage your peace. It may send you to make a simple call you have avoided, to release an expense pride demanded, to do the next honest task at hand with a free heart. Then, in ways you could not engineer, the addition comes, all these things shall be added unto you. Use the safeguard question as a lamp at every threshold. Is this love or leverage? Does this confirm one God and one life, or does it install a second center with its own private gain? Right action born of inner listening violates no law. It does not bruise a brother. It does not require deceit. It carries its own peace. You will notice the fruit. Less drama because you are not staging scenes. Fewer forced outcomes because you are not pushing. More timely openings because the order that already is has room to move. Great peace have they which love thy law, and nothing shall offend them. So live this way. Pause, consent, listen, and move only when the move bears the mark of love. I never give human advice. Let the Father within do all the directing. God is the actor. I am merely the instrument. And as you walk from choice to choice, let this breathe you, guard you, and align you. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Let us seal this quiet and sure, so that when the wind rises, the heart does not. The whole of this teaching can be gathered to a single safeguard. Do not tamper, conform. Do not control, surrender. Do not take love. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. This is not moral embroidery. It is law. It is as exact as 2 times 2. When you try to put a private edge on principle, it turns in your hand. When you lay the edge down and bow to the one, the sword becomes a plowshare that furrows peace into your field. The law is impersonal, therefore it is safe. It punishes no one. Error meets law and falls away. Truth does not injure the real. It dissolves the unreal. Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. So we put away the second God's outlines. We worship, fears we serve, projects we perform upon each other. We do not bargain with heaven. We do not pry at levers in another's life. We do not set up rewards to higher virtue. No, we conform. We let what is one be one. I of mine own self can do nothing. God is the actor. I am merely the instrument. And in that instrumentality, the so-called double edge ceases to threaten because there is nothing personal for it to cut. What falls away under law is only the false premise, the private will, the appetite, the superiority, the transaction. What remains is the hidden man of the heart, safe in God. The name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous runneth into it and is safe. Here, then, is the covenant to carry, to breathe, to whisper, until fear has no last word in you. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Not my wit, not my savings, not my network, not my charm. Thy grace. Say it when the phone rings and there is trouble. Say it when the room is quiet and there is only the next small task. Say it when the figures do not add and when the body complains. Say it when the praise arrives and when the criticism burns. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. This is not a charm, it is a consent. It removes the second center from consciousness and returns you to one. And as the words settle into being, you will notice the hush that follows. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Now identity, plain and unadorned, so there can be no confusion left. I am not in the physical. No surgeon has ever yet found any me inside of a body. I am absent from the body and present with the Lord. I and my Father are one. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. Therefore, there is no other mind to fear, no other life to harm, no other supply to covet, no other will to outrun. One life, revealing itself as infinite variety, never divided, never rival. In this oneness, there is nothing to manipulate, nothing to defend, nothing to prove. In this oneness, guidance is natural and safety native. Underneath are the everlasting arms. Let us end as we must always begin, in gratitude and surrender. Father, I thank thee that thou hast heard me, and I knew that thou hearest me always. Be thyself as us. Fulfill thy love as our seeing, our speaking, our doing. Remove our hands from every lever, our names from every project, our fear from every future. Let thy law be felt not as blade, but as everlasting order, not as threat, but as shelter. Live thou thy life. Love thou thy world as us, without remainder, without rivalry, without reserve, not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit, saith the Lord. And so we walk from this hour with a single password, breathing us, a single law guarding us, a single love expressing itself where we are. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. I am not in the physical. I and the Father are one. Therefore, I am one with all spiritual being and idea. God is the actor. I am merely the instrument. The law is exact and therefore kind. Grace is sufficiency, and so it is.